YouTubers, how's it going out there in YouTube land? Just another day or night in paradise, right? That's what I thought. Well, we got some sunshine finally, and the snow is melting, which is fine by me. And today we are working on the Trailblazer. We are going to be putting these new ball joints on. These are a better brand name ball joint. The ones I put on here before were aftermarket, and if you've been in a coma and you haven't seen my videos, you should check them out. And here's what I'm dealing with. These ball joints are about 4 to 5 months old, probably have a couple thousand miles on them. And check this out. I push down on this. I don't know if you can see that, but the whole thing moves. The other side is just as bad. This one's actually worse because I got a jack under here and it's not holding this completely up solid, but it's moving a little bit, but it's bad. I think you can see that there. So this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to take these out and replace both sides with better name brand ones and all that. And we're going to cut these open, and I want to see why they failed. I'm not sure why. I know when they're off, I can't move them with my hand, but I can take a pry bar like this and push down on them, and the whole ball joint moves up and down. While the knuckle, the stud that goes down to the ball joint, it moves up and down inside the ball joint. And also this nut, this pinch bolt, it is tight, so it's not loose. So this is what we're going to be dealing with. I had this issue. It got worse over time because when I was driving down the highway and I changed lanes, the front end felt like something was pushing it off to the side on some uneven places in the road. And everything under here has been replaced. I mean, upper, lower, sway bar, end links, you name it. The only thing that hasn't been replaced is the rack and pinion, which I know it is okay because I took it to the alignment shop and they said it was fine. And the funny thing is, the alignment shop, they said my upper ball joints were just fine. Well, in my last video, a few videos back, I thought I'd do some checking myself, and this is what I discovered. They were not. So, don't believe everything here, folks. Sometimes you got to get out there and check things yourself. Although it doesn't look like a lot of movement to you, it's kind of hard for me to hold the camera steady and do this, but trust me, there's movement there, and it doesn't take much for something like an upper or lower ball joint to go bad, just with a little bit of play in it before you start feeling the difference in the steering wheel when you're driving. So, having said that, let's get this together. Okay, so now here is the deal. I've got my jack under the hub, and it's nice and sturdy, and I got my little pry bar, and there is that ball joint. Now watch this when I push down on it. Sucker does not move whatsoever now. Ugh. Ugh. That's the way a ball joint is supposed to be, not moving around. So those other ones were defective. I can't move that at all. So I'm going to hit the other side. I'm not going to show you how to do it. There's hundreds of tutorials online on how to change ball joints. But when we come back here, we're going to cut these ball joints, these old ones that failed early, and I'm kind of curious to see what they look like on the inside. I did see a picture online that some upper ball joints actually have springs in them, which was kind of weird. I mean, I've seen that, but I've never actually had a vehicle that actually has a ball joint that has a spring in the top of it. So that's kind of interesting. So we'll come back here in a little bit and cut the ball joints open and wrap this video up. Alright, so there's the one I just took out, which is only about 4 months old. I can push down on it with a little bit of force, but it doesn't move or anything, so I'm not sure what's going on. We're going to cut it open here in a little bit and look at it. There's our new one. So it's in. Got the clip on. Wasn't too bad. Now, if you go out and rent one of these kits here, make sure you get the biggest kit you can get. These smaller ones, I always find you have to end up looking for sockets and stuff because there's just not enough room under here a lot of times, or there's not enough pieces here. You can see this is pretty much bare bones. This is all they had today. This was like the 12 piece, I believe. So just if you need to do a ball joint, upper or lower, just make sure you get the biggest kit you can get to make your life a little bit easier. So that's on, and now we'll go ahead and hit the other side. We're going to see if these ball joints are nice and tight. I'm interested to see if these will move like the other ones did when I put pressure on the top of the control arm and push down on it. So back here in a little bit, and we'll look at the other side. Okay, so we now have our new ball joints on, and there they are. You can see we've got nice, pretty grease fittings on them. They've both been greased on both sides, and I take it out, and would you know, I still have the same issue with the thing swaying a little bit when I cross over on the highway on uneven lanes. So I finally figured out what was wrong with it, and it wasn't the upper ball joints. Now let me show you something real quick on those ball joints. Now here are the ball joints that I cut open. These two here were the ones that I just took off that are only about 4 months old, and here is the factory one that's been on it forever that I took off. So I cut them in half, and check this out. This is what normally you get when you buy a ball joint. It's just basically a ball inside of a housing. Sometimes they put grease fittings on, sometimes they don't, but when you can't get grease in them, this is what happens. They wear out pretty fast. So you can see this one was pretty much shot. Now here are the two that I just took off. Now 95% of you folks don't know this, or probably never even heard of it. There's a thing called floating type ball joints, and what that means is sometimes they put a little spring in the top of this ball joint, and as I open this up here, there's our ball joint, there's our housing, and on the top of here we have a little plate. What do we have right there? We have a little spring. Yes, so this is a floating type ball joint. So I have no really way of verifying this when you buy ball joints, especially I didn't. So this one here is probably still good, but I wanted to cut it open and verify that it wasn't maybe destroyed on the inside first. So apparently these ball joints were just okay. This here is that spring that is on the top of this, and this is called, like I said, floating type ball joints, and you'll see this on ball joints on the top of the suspension where there's no load really. And as the ball joint wears down, this spring will push down and keep this tight and keep the ball joint from rattling around. So in a nutshell, the ball joints are all right. So now back to the swaying issue. What's going on? Well, let's go underneath the vehicle and I'll show you what I found. Okay, so here is the control arm on the driver's side, lower ball joint over there, upper ball joint way up there. A lot of times when you look at these bushings, they look good. Don't let them fool you, because here is what the issue is. Check this out. This whole thing is moving. This is my whole issue the whole time here. See if I can get the camera steady. Look at that. How easy that is to move. And hear that? That's what my issue was the whole time. I checked these about 6 months ago and they seemed okay. And I checked the driver's side. It's not as bad, but I'm replacing both of these. Now the good news is you can replace the whole control arm here, the lower control arm. But there's a piece that bolts onto it right there. You see this bolt right there on the bottom, right about there, and back here. If you take those bolts out, that piece will come loose from this lower control arm. Now in order to get that out, you're going to have to take the lower control arm out anyway to be able to slide this out. And these nuts here, you see, you knock these off, take them out, and pull that lower control arm off from that housing. And that's how you replace that. So that looks like I'm going to replace both sides. If you guys want to see a video on how to do that, let me know in the comment section below. Let me show you what I bought. I bought these online. So here's what I picked up online on eBay, free shipping, $63. These are called suspension control arm support brackets. Basically, your lower control arm bolts onto these, and these are bolted onto this frame. I'm going to be replacing both of them, looks like. And that should take care of my little bit of a swaying that I had in the front, especially when I changed lanes. So if you want to see a video on that, give me a comment in the section below. And like I said, I'll do a video on how to replace that control arm there and what's involved. I know I have to take the whole control arm there out in order to get into that sub control arm, but we'll put that in the video. So in a nutshell, if you're checking ball joints, especially your top ball joints, when you're pushing down on them with a pry bar just to verify if they're good, make sure you don't have a floating spring type design. If you go back earlier in the video, you'll see that I talked about this. I wasn't sure. So these two ball joints I got online for $20 free shipping. So I have an extra ball joint for the future if ever needed. So that's it in a nutshell, guys. I will give you guys an update a little bit later. Alright, so that's what it is about. Sometimes you just got to get under there and look at things, pry on things, and try to figure out what's bad. But I love my Trailblazer. It runs great. Like I said, when I changed lanes, it just felt like somebody for a split second tried to push it the front end left or right on the uneven part of the road. So I had this problem on a Neon when I replaced both lower ball joints and the control arms, it took care of the problem. My case here, it's just those control arm bushings that are shut. So until my next video, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll give you guys up a little bit later. Until then, peace.